problem for us too. Shooting, killing, bombing every day, sexual harassing every day. No movement, I just in the house like prisoners. Nothing, you can't go out, you can't go out at any time. I just indoor there.
Water started entering inside our boats. There is a hole inside the lapa and entering inside. Some people die, some people that sleep, they now sit on top of them. Even this my friend died because she was sleeping, the sleep that she told me to sleep. She now sleep, they now sit on top of her. She died. There are some people, they sleep, they died. 6 people.
The Mediterranean Sea. A watery grave for migrants. Thousands of migrants who perish here are Africans. Some are fleeing conflict, war and persecution, only to face an enemy they cannot outrun. How does one escape a stormy sea with only an inflated boat as shelter? Others are inspired by the idea of Europe. Ill-founded imaginations of sensational opportunities overshadowed both the risk involved in getting there and the reality of life in Europe should they even make the journey.
From here it's gone. Yeah. I can't move. It's okay, we have doctors.
This is a story of life and death. Imagine traveling in a small, packed, decrepit boat without life jackets, completely exposed to an erratic sea. And for many, this is after enduring weeks and months of torture, rape and abuse in Libya. For the Nigerian migrants coming from different parts of the country, they travel through Sokoto up to Niamey, Agadez and Duruku in Niger Republic, enduring the dry, unforgiving Sahel weather. Finally, they land in Tripoli, the Libyan capital. From there, they enter a boat heading to Italy. To turn back would mean possible torture, abuse, and even death. To go forward is the literal definition of being between the devil and the deep blue sea. You decide to take your chances on a dingy, overloaded boat, praying it gets you to Italy or Spain in Europe, which for you is an El Dorado of sorts. Europe for these migrants is a land of great opportunities, safety, a chance of getting a better life, an expressway out of poverty. But some are lucky. Rescue ships patrol the Mediterranean Sea, searching for exhausted, traumatized and starving migrants. Exhaustion mingled with relief. They spent hours at sea, exposed to extreme cold and risking hypothermia. After hours and sometimes days spent aboard this terribly unsafe boats, the survivors cannot believe their luck. Although there is a sense of relief, Their eyes still tell a tale of unspeakable horrors they have endured to get to this point. Many of the female migrants who have been rescued by Doctors Without Borders, also known as MSF, suffered rape and torture in Libya. Some of them contracted HIV as a result. MSF has been embarking on search and rescue operations in the Mediterranean Sea since 2015. In 2017, Doctors Without Borders rescued more than 15,078 people at sea, of which 21% came from Nigeria, making it the #1 nationality rescued. For women, the percentage is higher. Nigerian women make up more than 30% of all the women crossing the Mediterranean and are at an extremely high risk of being trafficked. The percentage of Nigerians, particularly women, crossing the Mediterranean Sea to Europe is increasing. The figure of 2016 represents an 8-fold increase from 2014. In the first 5 months of 2017, 2,800 Nigerian women arrived in Italy. According to the International Organization on Migration, an estimated 80% of Nigerian women arriving in Italy by sea are trafficked.
Probably 95% of the women that we work with actually know that they're going to be working in prostitution. What they don't know is the reality of what that life ultimately will look like. They don't know that it's going to take them longer than 6 months to repay a debt of $50,000, $60,000 back to the trafficker. They also don't know that they're going to be forced to have had sexual encounters with anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 men. They don't know that they are going to be beaten and raped and forced to do things that they would never have imagined, and forced to return back to Nigeria completely empty-handed.
The migrants are beyond relieved when the rescue ship docks in the port of Catania, Italy. They are finally on dry ground. But Europe is not waiting to receive them with open arms. The migrants are thrown into Italy's difficult reception system. They go through security checks, collection of fingerprints, an intense screening process. They are divided and sent to the many reception centers in Italy. Italy's reception centers are bursting at its seams, housing an estimated 165,000 migrants.
In our statistics, we found that 12% of the women that we've talked to have experienced sexual violence in their country of origin, 22% on the journey, and 42% inside Libya. So that's a massive percentage of women and girls that are experiencing sexual violence. There is insufficient places in protection facilities in Italy, so that means that even as a victim of trafficking, even if you come forward, which is a huge barrier, but even if you do, there might not be sufficient place for you. So you might have to stay in a normal reception facility where you are very vulnerable to being contacted by your trafficker, even though you've already identified yourself as a victim of trafficking. So I think there is a huge need to increase the spaces for victims of trafficking in protection facilities.
Catania, the second largest city in Sicily in the south of Italy. For years, The port of Catania has served as a harbour for sailors and fishermen around the Mediterranean Sea. But now, the port receives thousands of desperate migrants seeking refuge in Europe. MSF and SOS use the Aquarius, which docks at the port of Catania, to rescue migrants on the Mediterranean Sea. I visit the Aquarius in Catania.
Hi. Welcome on board.
Thank you.
Come in.
I'm here to see firsthand and hear the experiences of what migrants face while coming to Europe by land and sea, and what their lives are like now.
The rig then comes and arrives here, and then one by one, the people climb up the ladder and we take them on board.
Noor from MSF takes me around the ship and explains the complex process of receiving migrants.
We offer the women the opportunity to draw because we notice that a lot of the times speaking is quite difficult for people and putting words to their story, especially if it's not in their native language. So we put around paper and pens and we give them the opportunity to draw something if they would like. And the drawings that come out of that are really, really strong.
These are the drawings.
These are examples of drawings, yes. This was actually a woman who tried to cross the sea a few months ago with her 3 children, and all her 3 children died at sea. Images of the boats. Of course, this is their last memory. This is actually an image drawn by a Nigerian lady who drew all the different stages of her journey and her different memories.
MSF tries to help the children who were rescued find some relief from the horrors they have faced, and they also welcome new life on the ship. She tells me that some of the women and girls who arrive in Catania after leaving the rescue ships escape from the reception centres and sadly run straight into the hands of their sponsors. They feel they are bound to them after swearing to an oath in Nigeria to repay the monies paid to get them to Europe. They do not fully comprehend the dangerous world they are entering into. I leave the boat and drive through the streets of Catania. MSF has arranged a visit to a safe house in Catania which accommodates survivors of human trafficking. I accompany Nigerian actress and humanitarian Stephanie Linus to this safe house to meet with some of the women and girls who were rescued from prostitution and sex trafficking in Italy.
Whenever you show desperation for anything, there is room for somebody to come and manipulate you and use you.
For security reasons, I cannot divulge the location of this safe house because traffickers who facilitated the trip to Italy for some of these girls are still haunting them. These women and girls may have survived trafficking, rape and forced prostitution, but they are haunted and traumatized by memories of the painful, unspeakable ordeal they have had to endure. Can they ever forget or recover?
And so that they can help the fellow human beings not to fall into this trap. I ask that you give them direction.
I went for the swearing of the oath, which my uncle, who is my mommy's younger brother, accompanied me to the place to swear the oath, where they do the juju rituals, where they collected my fingernails, hair from my privates, and giving me the hearts of a chicken to eat raw, not cooked, with the liver, not cooked, and then the wine, the hot drink they drink, and the cola nuts. Then after the ritual, the 2 days after, we'll proceed on the journey.
A journey she had no inkling of how dangerous it would be.
We spent 3-4 days in Agadez. Then we have to proceed on the journey to pass through the Sahara Desert on the Hilos. So we spent 3 days to cross the Sahara Desert to get to Gatron in Libya. So I saw different things in Libya. The journey is not a journey that one could tell. The journey in the desert, even passing by, you see dead bodies that, because person die for desert now to put around for sand. You know, even the roti, now sun now they dry them. You know the roti for desert. Then I spent 1 month and again in Tripoli before I have to cross the sea. Then the day they finally pushed us to cross to Italy, we entered the Lapa. But we spent close to 7 hours on top of the sea before we got rescued.
But arriving in Italy was just the beginning of a fresh ordeal.
Then my experience for the house where I go, because normally they carry girl, they come, they nice, they'll pet you to make sure say you reach their hand. Then when you reach their hand, they can't show you their real color, waiting they be. If you deal with madam, you know they see outside, you not get privilege to come out because they don't want me to involve her, they don't want me to involve them. So I know they come outside, or let's say maybe for night, they won't go walk, they won't carry me go. So we get taxi when they come, they carry us. I not know that place like that. Because me and friends, I gather across. When I reach, I spent about 1 week plus before she finally carry me, say make I go the walk. She come make my hair, carry me. I say, this one not be waiting. Don't be smart till they talk for house. So now carry girl now say work day. But now I talk prostitution, since I saw it they be. So already the thought, when I'll come outside like this, on my heart will they burn. I'll say, God, which kind of life be this? Me when I get store, at least I'll sit down for my store, I'll they sell. And me constant for road now. They wait, me man can't carry me. Whether rain they fall, cold day. I will stand for inside, they wait for man. Me man can't carry me for how much? 20 euro. When you change, I not reach 10,000 naira for Nigerian money.
If you had known that this was what you were going to go through, this was what you were going to face in Italy, would you have still come?
Yes, where you still want to fall inside fire and you still want to jump inside, I would not have tried it, my sister.
Driving through the expressway in Catania en route to another safe house. This center is run by Penelope, an anti-trafficking organization. There I meet with a 20-year-old trafficking survivor. She tells me that she dropped out of secondary school because her parents were no longer able to pay her fees. She later left her home in Warri, Delta State, to Benin City in Edo State in search of a better life, but instead found her way into the hands of traffickers who promised her an education in Italy. In Benin, she was also repeatedly raped by men who claimed to offer her help.
He said, if you do sleep with me, I will carry my load and leave his room. You understand? I'll carry my load and me, I didn't have anywhere to go to. He will force me. Even though the brother is there, with time and mat, he will sleep with me.
She recounts the trauma she faced on the journey to Italy.
I spent 5 months in my journey. I went to 3 prisons. 3 prisons. Even before we enter Niger, after Niger, Agadez, right? Before we enter Niger, the journey was very terrible. They steal my 50 dinar that I put under my stockings. It was terrible. I fall out from the car. They want to leave me safe. They want to leave. My leg was broken. We now got into the boat. Immediately I stand up. Oh! Boat started weaving. The boat started shaking. Then they used the jacket I'm wearing to tie my neck. They want to throw me inside the sea. I started shouting. I started crying. I started shouting. I started crying. I started shouting. Then I sit down again. This woman started crying. Oh, confusion enter into our boats. Confusion. Water started entering inside our boats. There is a hole inside the lapa and entering inside. Some people die. Some people that sleep, they now sit on top of them. Even this, my friend died because she was sleeping. The sleep that she told me to sleep, she now sleep. They now sit on top of her. They died. 6 people.
The madam now, did she not contact you?
Then when they took me to Mindero, I am the one that contacted her because it's an agreement we made in Nigeria before we came. Then I contacted her. Then I told her everything that happened. I just told her everything that happened, how I got here, my injury. He said, he didn't even tell me sorry. He said, where are you now? Mama. Then I told her, that means, thank you. I just appreciate everything she did because I wish she didn't pay the money before. I could have not even been in this place today. Then I appreciate her. After thanking her, then I used the other one to face her. I said, just wait a minute, ma. Did you really brought me to this place to do prostitution? He said, Nigeria people, did they tell you that you come here? Yes, now. Or did you think in your mind that you are coming to this place to go to school before? Who want to pursue you? Oh, tears now fall out from my eye.
To make some money on the side, some of the migrants resort to begging on the streets of Catania while they wait for the decision from the Italian authority on the status of their papers. I found Osaho, a migrant from Edo State, on the streets of Catania, where he cleans car window panes for money. He agrees to speak with me. I want to know how he came to Catania and if coming to Italy has been worth it.
No. I don't feel come back to. If I don't feel pass line enter abroad though. True, I never try before me try. I don't feel try. May you forget the river, the desert. That's a hard desert. You know people they die for that desert. Sometimes people they fight for inside loss. True, to be frank. He lost kind of like 40 people. No, he lost and that he lost the back. He go low people. Maybe along the line, people will fall for inside. People will fall for that desert. So the people person go fall. Maybe want to go drive come out. No food, no water. I want to survive. So now different things they happen. Not be like different things they happen.
With all that you have faced in coming to Europe, to Italy, would you say it's been worth it?
It's not worth. Even Nigeria is more better than Nigeria. Just our bad leader. Truth. Nigeria is more better than Italy. Just our bad leader.
Would you want to come back to Nigeria?
No. That's what I want to do. If I want to go back to once I don't get my document, I'll go back to Nigeria, sure, but not be now.
Is there anything that would have kept you in Nigeria without coming?
No good work, no job, no especially hungry. Hunger is too much in Nigeria. Hungry.
I meet up with actress and humanitarian Stephanie Linus at a hotel in Sicily. Wow. Stephanie is doing advocacy on sex trafficking of Nigerian migrants in Italy.
I think we have a fundamental issue in our country that we're not addressing. And some of the fundamental issue is to find out why do people migrate in such an enormous numbers. And also sometimes in Nigeria, most of us who live in the city, who think, sometimes we live in Lagos and feel that is the only place in Nigeria. We get all our news, but you don't understand that other people live in other parts of the country who might not have access to the internet, who might not really have access to this news. And those are the people who also fall, who fall victims of human trafficking. And the fundamental issue in our country is something that we're not addressing, the fact there's no social welfare for a lot of us in the country. And also, people just are seeking for a better life.
I returned home to Nigeria, trying to digest all I had witnessed and heard in Italy. I visit the head office of anti-trafficking agency NAPTIP in Abuja to find out why a large number of Nigerians are embarking on this perilous journey to Europe via Libya and what the Nigerian government is doing about it. I meet with the Director General NAPTIP, Julie Oka-Donnelly.
The question we should be asking ourselves is, where does this enlightenment take place? There's one thing to organize seminars, conferences, talks, movies, but where are they taking place? That's the question. I think we've been doing it wrongly, and that is why now we've decided to take this campaign to the communities, to the rural areas, because this is where the girls, boys, men and women are taken from. Some of them may be taken from the city, but the truth is that anyone who goes from the city does not believe he or she will be trafficked. They are given the impression that they're going to be given jobs and they are ready to take a chance. So no one ever goes, with the idea that they are going to be trafficked, not at all. Even those who think they would want to go for prostitution, who actually want to go for prostitution, do not know that they will be sexually exploited. It's one thing to be a prostitute, and it's another thing to be sexually exploited. Those are two different things. Nobody in his or her right mind would want to go and have sex with 10, 15, 20 men when the money is not coming to you. Who does that?
Who are these traffickers?
The traffickers are people you and I know. But unless people give us information, you may never know who they are. We cannot prosecute Nigerians here in Nigeria without you prosecuting the traffickers in the destination countries. Otherwise, we'll just be wasting our time. I keep making demands on the destination countries. Where are the traffickers that collaborate with those in the countries of origin? How many are you prosecuting? How many have you convicted? Give us the numbers.
She says the action of some European governments is contributing to the danger migrants face on the journey by land and sea to Europe.
This was a major blunder on the part of the EU. I mean, you cannot empower militias to stop irregular migrants from traveling. That was a major, major blunder. That was the blunder that led to the slave trade in Libya, the blunder that led to forced labor, sexual exploitation, and organ harvesting.
It's become apparent that many of these migrants come from Edo State in the southern part of Nigeria. Before the girls begin the journey to Europe, traffickers make the girls and women swear to an oath at shrines in Benin City. Some of these girls are as young as 13. NAPTIP tells me they have engaged some local witch doctors in Benin City as ambassadors in fighting human trafficking. But is this enough? Will this deter Nigerians from embarking on a suicide mission to Europe? Evan Benson Idahosa is the executive director, Pathfinder's Justice Initiative. Her organization rehabilitates victims of sex trafficking.
Well, I think from our research, poverty is certainly the primary reason. But I think what we've also found is that in addition to women who are being trafficked because they're living in abject poverty, these are people who are living on $1, $2 a day. We also have women who are living in poverty but also being pressured by their parents. We have women who are living in poverty and have little to no economic opportunities. So it's generally a combination of poverty and some other factor. So there are women whose value system has been eroded in some way, where ambition has now turned to an unhealthy thing when generally ambition is a positive thing. And so I think what we're finding overall that it's a combination of poverty and some other factor.
It's become apparent that many of these migrants come from Edo State in the southern part of Nigeria.
Across Nigeria, from our findings and the research that we've done based on information that we've gleaned from survivors. Poverty is certainly the main reason why. Again, there are a lack of economic opportunities. But the truth is that Edo State is not the poorest state in Nigeria. We're also not the state that has the least economic opportunities. And so what is it that is driving our women and girls to consider prostitution and to quote unquote volunteer to work in prostitution? And the reality is that part of it is that our value system has been corrupted to a certain extent. There are lots of women that now consider prostitution the status quo. It's part of our functioning economy in Edo State, and there are lots of women who, if you don't have somebody who's overseas working in the sex industry in Europe, you're actually looked down upon in Edo State. And so part of the reality is trying to figure out how we're actually going to start to change our value system, how we're actually going to define success in more traditional ways, because the reality is that the age group of women who are most vulnerable to trafficking in Nigeria currently have grown up looking at someone or defining success by someone who was a trafficking victim who then turned into a trafficker. Right? And so we now have to offer alternatives that are going to allow women to start to view themselves, value who they are. And until that is done, you're going to see this issue continue to proliferate in Edo State.
What will make a man or woman decide to leave Nigeria and embark on an extremely dangerous journey to Europe via Libya? Are they aware of the horrific dangers on the way? How can they be deterred from risking their lives in what will very likely be a fatal trip? There are no easy answers.
My message to her, to any girl in Nigeria that would want to take this risky journey, is that Italy is not worth dying for.
Another problem for us is shooting, killing, bombing every day, sexual harassment.